Howdy, folks. This is another episode of the Chug Life podcast, and today is an absolutely incredible day for the southern hemisphere of the world, and truly for everybody in the world, in my opinion, because, as you probably know, a guy by the name of Nicolas Maduro was kidnapped in his sleep with his wife and flown out of Venezuela by the 160th, and it couldn't have happened to a better guy. Truly, this is not a moment I will lament. This is not a moment that I am going to be sad about for 1 second. Truly, this is a momentous occasion, in my opinion, for the world, and I'll explain to you why. And with that being said, if you guys could follow, give us a comment what you think on the episode, and let us know what you think about the situation. And that being said, guys, we're going to be showing a lot of scenes of war today. Of course, we do have all of the video. On top of video and information on top of information, we're going to be checking out the indictment against Maduro. We are going to be checking out the initial moments of the invasion from all points of view, and it's going to be a very hectic episode. So for audio listeners, do be aware in the scenes that we do transfer into battle scenes, you may get a little spooked in the initial moment. I will be doing my best to translate as well, just because some of the commentary truly is hilarious. It seems that a lot of Venezuelans, and I would think a majority of Venezuelans, to be honest with you, are incredibly happy about this. And, well, they're going as far as celebrating, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So we're going to start with the oversight view of the city of Caracas right here, and check this out.
Marico, vamos a moverla. Graba ahí, graba ahí. Espera.
And guys in the back are like, dude, record there. It's just bombs falling everywhere.
Ya mañana mismo. ¿Sí pillaste? No, voy a ir al lado de Fortituno, weón. Sí.
Somebody asked him, are you recording? He's like, yeah.
Marico, tengo el corazón a mil, pues.
Somebody says his heart's dropped to his asshole.
Muriéndose.
Now, some folks in the background have begun discussing what the aftermath of that is going to look like. And somebody does make, the rather grim conclusion. People are dying down there. That's possible. And so we're going to be seeing what those initial moments were like. This is a guy who's making a video walking through the town as these bombs begin falling.
Y después van hacia arriba, ¿sí? Si es por parte de su madre o parte... boludo, se cortó la luz.
Now, it is just absolutely horrifying, truly, to think about what that experience must be like, and to just put yourself in those footsteps, and it's just terrifying, truly. I can't imagine what this must be like for folks that experience this. Now, on the other hand, there are folks that are dealing with this a bit differently. Check this guy out.
Vamos, dale, pues.
Now, as bombs are falling and as you have the general, panic ongoing within some folks that are in the environment, you're going to have folks that are just on the complete opposite side of that spectrum. And they're just having a blast, driving through the town, doing wheelies on their dirt bikes, just 'cause. So it's a little heartwarming, and I'll be honest, there's a lot of points that as I'm watching these videos, I'm just absolutely horrified, just hoping to God that there isn't a civilian down there. And, it's difficult to move on and realize that the outcome of this is a good thing for the people of Venezuela and for the world. And we're going to get to there, but I just want to continue showing you guys this just so we could go through the same footsteps almost. And you can see what I've seen from this experience. Now, this is going to be the insert group. This is roughly about 10 different choppers that was used, and that's not including the stuff that we don't know about. There have been some photos of a very large looking CH-53K looking type plane or type chopper that kind of indicates maybe MARSOC was used. And they provided outer perimeter security for Delta while Delta did the work. And there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about this, but we're going to deep dive into this and just kind of think about for a second if there are any groups that you would consider having that's readily available, like in the last week, because that's when contact started. So we have first strikes the 18th of December, 19th of December. Those are the first strikes that come around the border of Colombia. That makes Colombia freak out. They start screaming, and he's still screaming. Petro will not stop screaming. It's unfortunate, honestly, because I don't think that there's a lot of room for him to be screaming. Because if he wanted to do something to deal with the drug trade, they could have, and they didn't. They straight up didn't. And for all we know, they probably facilitated it. I'm curious to see what in the indictment will, if that is true, or if there's any basis in that, if that will come out in that. But anyhow, so back to this, we have most likely here Delta and MARSOC flying in. And the reason for the belief that it's MARSOC is because the Iwo Jima is off of the coast, and that's typically their ride there. So there you have, these inserts as bombs are dropping. You can notice here that there's bombs that drop right over that area that they fly in on. So this is incredibly well coordinated timing, which leads me to believe B-2s were used, possibly the B-21. I'd even go as far as saying that there were F-35s actively and F-22s possibly actively dropping bombs, and it was a huge air show. We're gonna learn more throughout the time as stuff like this ends up getting publicized, just because the amount of video footage there is. I'm sure there's gonna be more. So this is Caracas in the morning, bright and early. This is the aftermath. I'm going to go as far to say that, as far as saying that they're happy about this, and this is a good thing. Done by some very bad people with very bad intentions, but here's the problem. It's not being followed through. You still have the remainder of his group, which is going to be the head executioner and the basically head kidnapper or torturer, and they're very bad people. They're still there. So what we know is the opposition movement, the woman who received the Nobel Peace Prize, she is putting forward a huge march today to probably take back the civil institutions just by sheer force of the people, and then put the guy who won the last election, quote unquote, into the presidency. We're going to check her letter out here in a bit, but I just wanted to show you guys just one last idea of how these guys would have rode in. We're talking about Delta here. So it's going to be some really cool stuff. So check this out, because why not? And so I'm going to shut that off because I'm probably going to get copyrighted for that. But we've got some really nice M60 DAPs. We've got some beautiful little birds here. Just absolutely stunning stuff to look at, truly. And that is how these guys would have rode in to pull up to Maduro's house. And so we've got one more over the city view here that I wanted to check out. This comes as a complete surprise to the people. These folks were celebrating, having a party as the bombing started. Yeah, so this is absolutely scuffed because it's sideways. But these folks are freaking out as the bombs begin to drop. Just a little shocked, like, what is that? Some lady's asking for her phone. Some guy pointed out how there's a part of the city that the light went out. And that is what the initial strikes would have looked like. But very quickly, we're going to check out Maria Corina Machado's post. And she says, Venezolanos, it's the hour of liberty. Venezuelans, it's the hour of liberty. And she's saying that the people that elected Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia as the legitimate president of Venezuela say he should assume his immediate mandate constitutionally and be recognized as the commandant of the national army by all of the officials and soldiers in it. So I'm curious how this is going to shape up, because there has been a push back from the government in power. Keep in mind, they only got Maduro. So there are still 2 to 3 other head honchos with power, the guys that actually wield power. Like, these are the security forces guys, the intelligence guys, the army guys. So this is let's just say it really ill-timed, because this doesn't necessarily have the support of that the power base, so to speak, the guys with the tanks. Anyhow, so hopefully that goes well for them. But I do want to turn really quickly before we go into Maduro and his indictment. I wanted to show you guys the morning after what the Venezuelan Air Force did. Because if you notice, right, these choppers are flying in calm. It's nice and steady. It's not a single tracer. Nothing. There is no Hostomel fucking redo. There is absolutely nothing that looks like a Mogadishu. Like, it's just, you kind of have to consider for a second, the Somalis held off better than the Venezuelan armed forces. And I'm talking about somebody that has been given everything by Russia that they could be given. Like, I'm talking about, you got to check this out, right? Just keep in mind, these guys have been given good stuff. And so this is the over the airfield. You've got some F something. I can't really see that. That guy's going real fast. That's a SU-30. You can tell by the nose. Twin engine. That's maybe another SU-30. Yeah. So they've got a handful of SU-30s in the air. This guy just says they're F-16s, but they don't look like F-16s, I'm gonna be honest with you. These guys post good stuff, Fatux Network, but sometimes it's just not great. So here's the thing. We are discussing, just for a quick second, gonna continue on this roll about what does this mean? You know, like what really is the point here? We've been chasing oil tankers. We have been seizing oil tankers. We are bombing people in the Caribbean in boats. We have bombed about 4 different countries worth of civilians in international waters that were just because they were in boats, and fast boats, you know, good boats. And some would say, all right, there isn't any need to bomb these little dinghies. All right, there isn't any need to go and double strike said dinghies after you bombed them. So I'm gonna err on that side in this argument, and I want you guys to keep that argument in mind as we read through this. This indictment here is absolutely just jaw-dropping. And the thing that really bothers me about this whole thing is that in this indictment, they have 2 out of the 3 people they could have gotten. So there was one person, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, who could have been also captured, and they didn't do it. And I'm also curious why they didn't capture the other guys. So I have some portions here of doubt at this point of the legitimacy of any argument we have for doing this thing, how we did it. And starting off with bombing all these little boats. And literally just absolutely ruining people's lives just on the whim, just because. It racks my brain. I really don't know what to think, because now we have the idea of, okay, let's just go to Cuba. Let's just do it on Fidel and his family. Or, not Fidel literally, but the Castro family. This is what they've wanted to do since the 80s. And it's mind-blowing that if there were a time that we could or would do it, it would be now. So, not only could we have one regime change possibility, but two regime change possibilities. And it's just a little wild. Because all of this connects to a sphere of influence on a Russian perspective that is being lost, and that they're not backing up. They're not doing anything. So there is a portion here that is affecting Vladimir Putin and Russia directly, because the Russians propped up Venezuela. That is well known. And the Chinese had delegations in Venezuela. They met with Maduro the day before the bombs. Hell, probably even the night before. Now, it is a little crazy that we went into Venezuela. If you are just now finding out that we did this, and you don't know that we have been doing this since Christmas and before Christmas, the first contacts were 18th and 19th of December. And there were reports of tribes that had found missile fragments on the 20th. So, if you keep that in mind, it's not very surprising because we've been testing them for weeks and they did nothing. So either they knew and they didn't care, but I don't think Maduro is going to... I wouldn't think he'd go down lightly. I truly did not expect this. In any measure of the world, I expected boots on the ground, tanks, a beachhead landing, D-Day 2.0 type shit. Like, straight up, honestly. Just our track record, just dog shit. Like Panama is just, yeah, it's bad. It's really fucking bad. We're not great with invading in the South. It happens, and it's eventually successful because obviously we're going to overwhelm whatever country, but still, it never ends well numbers-wise. But to not lose a single freaking soldier, to not lose a single plane, to not lose an asset, period, point blank, nothing. It is my belief as we currently stand that there wasn't a shot fired. So that just insane stuff, okay? There was no shot fired. The Venezuelan army, they just melted, ran away. All right, my Ukraine bros will probably get that reference. So, introduction. Here is the Maduro indictment. For over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their positions of public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine into the United States. Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, is at the forefront of that corruption and has partnered with his co-conspirators to use his illegally obtained authority and the institutions he corroded to transport thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States. Since his early days in the Venezuelan government, Maduro Moros has tarnished every public office he has held. As a member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Maduro moved loads of cocaine under the protection of Venezuelan law enforcement. As Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maduro provided Venezuelan diplomatic passports to drug traffickers and facilitated diplomatic cover for planes used by money launderers to repatriate drug proceeds from Mexico to Venezuela. As Venezuela's president and now de facto ruler, Maduro allows cocaine-fueled corruption to flourish for his own benefit, for the benefit of members of his ruling regime, and for the benefit of his family members. Nicolas Maduro, the defendant, now sits atop a corrupt, illegitimate government that for decades has leveraged government power to protect and promote illegal activity, including drug trafficking. That drug trafficking has enriched and entrenched Venezuela's political and military elite, including Minister of the Interior, Justice, and Peace, Diosdado Cabello Rondon. That's the guy that they could have gotten, but they didn't. The defendant and former Minister of the Interior and Justice, Ramon Rodriguez, also a defendant. This is, I believe, the second guy that they could have gotten, but they didn't. That massive scale drug trafficking has also concentrated power and wealth in the hands of Maduro's family, including his wife, the purported First Lady of Venezuela, Celia de Maduro. The defendant, they got her. She was in bed with Maduro. That's his wife. Maduro's son, member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Nicolas Maduro Guerra, a.k.a. Nicolásito, a.k.a. the Prince, the defendant. This cycle of narcotics-based corruption lines the pockets of Venezuelan officials and their families while also benefiting violent narco-terrorists who operate with impunity on Venezuelan soil and who help produce, protect, and transport tons of cocaine to the United States. So I just need to hold off here and remind y'all how batshit fucking crazy that first section there was, right? I mean, every position he has held, that's just insane. Like, just the wording here is, I'm not gonna say that I've never seen something like this because that's a little cliche. I'm gonna make it a lot more clearer. This is unprecedented by any means in any point of. I've probably read hundreds of these, and I have never seen wording used like this that it's so scathing on the defendant. It absolutely just rips the defendant to shred. And then I remember that this is one of the most corrupt people that South America has probably ever seen. And there's so much competition there, man. It's truly mind-blowing to think about that proposition, right? Like, I mean, Javier Milei, I'm gonna go ahead and say it now. Guy's probably corrupt. All right, let's just put that out there. My belief. Anyhow, so the rest of this 25-page indictment just rips into his connection with the FARC, with the ELN, with the TDA, the Tren de Agua. Yeah, you remember that whole thing. Is it now leading back? Hold on. You guys remember the whole freak out with Tren de Agua, the whole thing about, oh, they're in these apartment buildings. We've got to go in there, That's why we're doing all these deportations. We're going to get the bad ones out. Oh, shit, now we're bombing Venezuela. Yeah. Is it linking? Uh-huh. That's how propaganda works. That is the American propaganda machine. Full work, full steam ahead. All right? So, the rest of this, I'm scrolling through here. It's a whole load of just, I don't even want to say that they're charges. Like, it outlines a very clear path, in my opinion, of his relationship with drug dealers and narco-terrorist groups that he's funded. I think that they're not going to have any issues getting this through a court, getting him in front of a jury, all that. I think that the public fallout is going to be quite bad. I don't think everybody will think like me, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And there will be some folks that may immediately see this as an easy comparison to Israel, but I don't see it that way. And I don't think I ever will. Maduro was a rat bastard, and I am just really, really sad they couldn't get the rest of the torture guys and the people that are responsible for all the brutal stuff that happened during the protests. Those guys are left in power now, and that's really unfortunate. And I hope the people of Venezuela will be able to get themselves into power and take back what is theirs. Now, I do want to hit upon a few more points. And I think it is really important to not just realize what this implicates. And it is incredibly important to consider this point of view before we move on and continue talking about all of this bombing. Now, there are folks that believe there's similarity between the Russian invasion on Ukraine and the separatist movements that began in Ukraine in 2014 on behalf of Russians, and the crimes that were committed against Ukrainians at that time to get land and push Ukrainians out of that land. And there would be some that would compare the actions of Putin on Crimea, or the actions on Georgia, or the actions on Chechnya, any similar to what the U.S. just did to Maduro. I do think there is a very, very distinct difference there. First, these guys are literally best friends. As we know, Russians give Venezuelans a bunch of equipment, and Maduro is kind of like, he needed Russia and he needed China to bail him out. So he is somebody who has sold out his country and who has abused his people. Now, in that regard, there is a similarity to Putin. The way Putin is abusing the people's patriotism and propagandizing them to go and kill Ukrainians. There is a similarity there. Now, is there an adept comparison between Trump and Maduro? I think there is a good case there. I do think that in all reality, the U.S. would be better without Trump as well. So, we're going to move into more of this video of what this night looked like from the Venezuelan perspective.
Yo no soy triste y puedo temblar. Yo no soy triste y puedo temblar.
And these are strikes that are happening on Caracas proper, just absolutely detonating all kinds of targets. But I do believe that, just, from my understanding so far, there hasn't been any civilian casualties. And that is great news. If it is true, it's possibly one of the best things that the U.S. has ever done as a whole. And lastly, I want you guys to check out what this operation entailed. And I do want to kind of discuss how vast this target range is, just to kind of, I guess, preempt, and clear the way. And I also, I do think that there is going to be so much information that comes about this in the next few weeks that my next episode will be a much further deep dive into this operation. But this will go down in the history books for not having any contact, for not having any lost personnel, equipment. From as far as we know, no malfunctions, nothing. Went off without a hitch. It's truly something that is unheard of. It's for something this big to happen. It's truly incredible. Absolutely. There's going to be movies made about this type deal. I'm not even going to lie. So there were 13 targets. And the targets included radar facilities, Army General Command, Santa Monica District, Strategic Operational Command, Mountain Barracks, Hatillo Airport. And I do find one thing very interesting here. There is no mention of them striking Hugo Chavez's mausoleum where he was buried. I do find that really interesting here. I don't see it. Maybe it's the Mountain Barracks. Maybe that's what they're calling it. But it was, that's his burial place, and it's just a little interesting. Why you gotta bomb that? It's just like maybe I do think that was like a CIA input thing. We know the CIA had very, very, very heavy input for this mission, for tracking Maduro and his team, where he was staying, all of that. They had a lot to do with this. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was something the CIA wanted done, and it happened. So they hit El Hatillo Airport, Fuerte Tiuna Logistics, Armored Training and Military Police Base, hosting multiple brigades and battalions, La Carlota Airport, the El Volcán main signal antenna, La Guira Airport, Francisco Miranda Air Base, Iguarote Airport, and the Federal Legislative Palace. So we know there were serious strikes from these videos, but now you can kind of put a general idea as to what was getting hit. So we would think that these are probably going to be very effective in if you do a stealth attack. You hit that barracks, you hit the airports, and then you hit the operational command, general command. I mean, the radar facility, these are all just very textbook. Russia's looking at this and they're just drooling. They just cannot believe this happened. They cannot believe that this was done. They did not imagine this possible after their experiences. So it is truly a mind-blowing thing. This is an absolute operational success by any means, any measure. It's one for the history books. But the casualties that I can imagine here are going to be quite extensive. If that mountain barracks, this was done at night, they would have caught all of those people asleep. But here's the thing. Understand this. They do have, as we heard, when those first bomb dropped, they do have air sirens. So it would be my belief that there were a lot of people that made it out and simply ran for their lives. I do think that that's probably what happened, which is what leads me to believe a second strike, a second insert may be necessary to capture the remaining portion of that power structure. It's truly jaw dropping that didn't happen. Honestly, I cannot believe it, but it is what it is. So we're going to check out a few more of these strikes. Before we get ready to close this up, I just wanted to leave you guys with a few more images of what we're kind of discussing here. And, you know, it's not pretty, guys. I don't know what to tell you if you don't already know this. It really is not pretty. There's nothing about this that there is going to be like really, aside from people, you know, being happy and singing and stuff, that the first videos I showed you, there is not going to be many of those. There's going to be some very horrific stuff that comes out of all of this. And, you know, we're just seeing the stuff that looks good because it's explosions. You know, like I can't be any more upfront with you guys than that. With that being said, we're going to check out a few more of these strikes just to understand the totality of this. You know, we saw in the first videos, but here we'll be able to get a closer video of this. And check this out. And so those would have been some of the port strikes from what it would appear. Let's check out this secondary video here from the mountains. You can just see over the mountain range all of those lights. And we're going to see a few more of these just to get really the totality of what the damage looks like. You kind of have to look closer, and luckily we do have a closer point of view. Check this out.
Se escuchan helicópteros, son las 1:58 de la mañana.
Guy says it's 1:58 in the morning. We hear choppers.
Se escuchan helicópteros, son.
So, one thing I am thinking about is in this video, we see these strikes that happen right here in this bottom section on the right here. Those strikes look very familiar to the angle that we just saw in this video with the choppers, because they're coming from right to left. And look at how that bombing run went. And then you see that strike damage looks very similar to this mountain range right here. That's just an observation I made for folks that maybe have geolocating skills. You know, have fun with that one. But that is some of the reality here. And let's look at what some of this would have looked like on the ground.
Esto es el punto del ataque en la base aérea de La Carlota. podemos reportar que varias unidades de transporte civil fueron destruidas y creo que las imágenes son bastante claras al respecto. Vamos a meter un poco más el zoom. Ajá, ahí lo tenemos. Una unidad que fue destruida, en este caso un autobús rojo. Tenemos otra unidad que también fue destruida y otra unidad de transporte civil. Es importante.
Now, here is the really interesting part about this, is that is an anti-aircraft system to the left. Just keep that in mind.
Destacar lo que fue la afectación
All right, here we go.
causada por este ataque en la madrugada. De hecho, para que ustedes tengan una idea de la fuerza que tuvo este ataque, podemos ver la reja. Esto que ustedes ven aquí son las esquirlas, producto de la deflagración de los...
So here we have the fragmentation. I'm assuming cluster is what ended up hitting this whole area, which I'm honestly a little terrified for this guy. Just being in that area would not be great news, but I'm not sure if clusters wouldn't. It doesn't really look good. You could just put a couple of SDBs on these guys, and really just one, I think, would do enough to damage what looks like happened to the rest of these buses, because you look like there's no direct hits on the buses or around the buses. There is no crater. There is no entry point on any of the buses. It is just straight shrapnel everywhere. You can see the large amount of shrapnel just shredded this fence.
La reja en este sector. Y de hecho toda la vegetación que ustedes ven acá fue la que fue, si se quiere, arrastrada, ¿no?, por la potencia de los explosivos. Más allá inclusive tenemos un poste que fue arrancado de cuajo, precisamente por este fenómeno que les estamos comentando de las esquirlas de los explosivos que fueron utilizados en la mañana.
And so that is some of the underground, after the strike view of what precision is being used and what these strikes ended up doing. So we're going to see some miniguns here firing. Here's some fun bursts.
Diablo.
Guys, like, holy shit. Rocket hits.
Vaya. Mira, mira, está mirando.
It's like, look. And so those would have been, I believe, just seeing from all of the footage, just seeing the different damage zones, I believe that the Tor, because I believe that's a Tor. I want to say that the damaged vehicle we saw was a Tor. That was being lit up by one of the Apaches. And there's video, and this is another angle of the same attack run, I believe, because it looks very similar. So I'm going to see if I could find that very quickly before we go. And just so I could show you guys, because it is a very, very interesting point of view of what that attack was. Yeah, it's very, very, very crazy. It's a very short clip. Yeah, I don't know how to explain this other than holy shit, that's crazy. So we're gonna check this out, and just be careful with your ears. It does peak for a second there. I'm gonna do my best to control it. Okay, good deal. So that is, I believe part of the same rocket attack. That would be the finishing section of his rocket pod. But I'm unsure. I don't know. At the end of the day, this is all speculation, ladies and gentlemen. I love to speculate. But we do speculate with evidence, and we enjoy having facts to back that decision. So not just speaking out of my ass. Now, there's a few things to leave you all with. And the most important one is that this attack is going to radically change narco trafficking, hopefully, and what that does to the Caribbean, South America, and the USA as a whole. And it's also going to weaken Russia's stance on the world front. This is no longer a strong country, a popular country, a powerful country. This is no longer a country that can protect its allies. And I think that the Russian allies are starting to look over their shoulder now, and they're very worried. As I said, the Trump administration is now looking, quote unquote, into Cuba. And we all know what that means. This has been Rubio's fever dream since he was a child. He wants to invade Cuba so bad. And this is a really, really great test run. I'm not even going to lie to you. This is one thing, like if you did this as any other thing on earth, you were a coach with a, untested team, you wanted to put them up against something really nice and strong, a good team from a really good spot, and they beat the dog shit out of them. You're like, oh my God, now we need let's put them into a competition. Let's do some kind of tournament. Let's see what we can win, if we can win. And I think we may be at the start of some imperialist possibilities now. And depending on the route in which the U.S. decides on the aftermath of said country, it's going to be a huge historical marker for not just how this is handled, how people react to it. And not just, the general idea of propagandizing your, civilians and, the population into hating a people, into hating some form of terrorist group that resides in that country, and then using that populist support to launch a war to kidnap the president. We're all going to find out how people react, how people will deal with this in the halls of power. And I'm not going to lie, I don't have any hope for how they're going to deal with this. I don't think that checks and balances is working effectively anymore. I think that Chuck Schumer has gave in. I think that Hakeem Jeffries has gave in. I don't know if the opposition to Donald Trump has the power to stop this and stop possibly Cuba, because we all know Cuba's next. I mean, it's just like, it's a list, Cuba, Mexico. It's gonna happen. I'm saying, if it's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to happen this year. That is my end of all of this. The note I have taken from seeing all of this and ingesting all of this information, that is my big take. Cuba's next, Mexico is after. And what's to stop us from Colombia? What's to stop us from maybe Bolivia? Why not just invade Argentina? I know Trump is a big fan of that Bolsonaro guy. Why don't we invade Brazil and put him in power, right? What's to stop us from why can't we just send the Delta and MARSOC guys off the Baltic coast and have them fly into Moscow? Why can't we do that? Are you telling me that we cannot locate Vladimir Putin, that we cannot send the CIA to infiltrate and do the same shit? I mean, really? Do we not have any Russian guys hanging around really pissed off about Putin? Can we not just get Denis Putin himself and just send him why not? Why can't we do that? Now, at the end of the day, it's just my pipe dream, but I have a hunch that there's going to be a lot of regime change this year. And by regime change, I mean kidnapping these popular leaders, quote unquote, dictators, whatever you want to call them, and shipping them to the United States to face trial. And now, I promise this is the last thought. All right, I know I'm on the ramble here, but stick with me. What is to stop a country that can ship out citizens, green card holders, proper non-permanent residents, just ship them out, send them? We don't want you. What is a country that can do that and then kidnap another country's citizen and bring him to the States to face trial? There hasn't been, to my knowledge, a president to do that since the Obama days. And those guys were not facing trial. Those guys were going to Gitmo. And I hate to say this, ladies and gentlemen, but it's possible that there was other previous, like I said, Panama was a thing. We did that to Noriega. There's a track record for picking up these guys that are labeled to be bad guys by the state and shipped to the States or shipped to Cuba to just rot. We've done this with the Middle East for a long, long time. We have done this. Oh man, there's such a brutal history with the amount of not just Muslims but Arabs as a whole that we just terrorized and sent to Guantanamo just because. There's a brutal history of that. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to be very, very watchful of what happens because of this. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. If there was anybody that could do it, it's us. I mean, we can protest like a motherfucker, but we as a people, we do have that incredible power. But there's also another incredible power that we have, and that is reaching out to your congressman, guys. Seriously. I know some of you guys just fucking threw your head back. What the fuck, man? I get it. I really do. But I've got to say that it works. And it has a proving track record of working. Pressuring people works, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Try it. It feels good. Don't be disrespectful, all right? They won't listen to you if you're disrespectful, if you're rude. Just, you can be pissed off. Just understand that you're getting a message across. You're not going to speak to your congressman. You're not going to speak to your senator. You're going to speak to their staff. And just remember, your staff are people like you. Or their staff are people like you. So be kind to them and just relay the message properly. And what is that? We don't want tyranny. At the end of the day, that's what this looks like, guys. And I've been saying it for a bit. With all this executive order shit, with pardoning all these drug dealers. He pardoned the world's biggest drug. The guy was convicted and indicted for sending all I think it was like 100,000 tons of cocaine into the U.S., like the world's biggest drug dealer. Trump pardoned him like last month. This isn't about drugs, guys. All right, this isn't about narco trafficking. Hell, this probably isn't even about oil. All right, we don't know what this is about at the end of the day, because with Trump, you don't know shit. He is the most moronic, goddamn, twisted, stupid son of a... Alright. This is the end of our episode. And I appreciate all of you guys for listening and hanging out. If you liked what you listened to, please give us a follow, give us a like on social media, or comment what you think or don't know, or what your theories are. Anyhow. You guys take care. Goodbye.